I want to have a quick conversation with you about single member LLC payroll. So here is everything you need to know if you currently have a single member LLC and you want to have all kinds of information about the payroll process. So here's the overview I want you to pay attention to. So first of all, let's talk about deducting a salary for a single owner LLC. So single member LLCs are a unique crossover between LLCs and sole proprietorships, right? So they afford the owner the limited liability protection of an LLC, but with the option to pay taxes as a sole proprietor would, because the IRS is actually looking at you as what they call disregarded entity. So you file paperwork with the IRS, or you file your 1040 and you put everything about the LLC on your Schedule C. So when you operate your business as an LLC, this will affect your ability to be a salaried employee that deducts their salary from company earnings. As a single member LLC, you can pay your taxes as a corporation or a sole proprietorship. With either of these methods, you can deduct salaries paid to employees. It really depends. You need to actually file some paperwork with the IRS to do the election. So let's talk about sole proprietor designation first. So sole proprietorship is the automatic designation a single member LLC receives from the IRS. So if you file taxes as a sole proprietor, you report all business income and losses on your personal tax return. And this happens on a Schedule C or a Schedule C Easy. Wages are reported on Schedule C as employee expenses. You may also deduct payroll taxes on this form as well. Now, let the IRS know your company's structure, including the number of employees you have. Remember, if you are a single member LLC, you can still have employees. Single member LLC means that you alone own the LLC, but you can have 1,000 employees if you want to. If you receive a W-2 from your LLC, you can report this income under wages and income on your tax return. If you pay estimated taxes, enter them under deductions and credits in the federal estimated taxes by quarter section. Okay, so remaining LLC earnings or losses go on to your personal tax return. And these numbers, and this is an important element, these numbers are reported on the same return as any other income sources you have outside of your business. So if you take profits from an LLC, you cannot deduct this on your personal tax return as a salary. No. So single member LLCs that have employees can report employment taxes in two ways. You can report them under the social security number of their company's owner, or you can report them using the LLC's EIN. So you have the options here. Boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. So when we talk about single member LLC payroll, number one, the first option, you have sole proprietor designation. I just spoke about that. Now let's talk about electing corporate tax. In other words, you file with the IRS, you file a form, so you can use Form 8832 to pay taxes as a corporation instead of an LLC or a sole proprietor. So when being taxed as a corporation, here we're speaking about C corporation. As a corporation, you can pay yourself a salary and deduct it from your corporate tax return. Okay, corporations are classed as separate taxpayers by the IRS. So what happens here is that company income does not go on your personal tax return like your Form 1040. No, you will file a corporate tax return, which is actually done on Form 1120 or 1120A. And while a salary deduction sounds beneficial, its merits are often outweighed by the penalty of double corporate taxation. So it's really important to remember that when we talk about C corporation taxation, we're speaking about double taxation. In other words, you're paying taxes on the company's profits, and you're also paying taxes at the individual level, because the salary you pay yourself will be reported and taxed on your personal tax return. But that salary has already gone into calculating the income of the company's income. I mean, the company's profit, if you will. So it's really important to now, as long as you're comfortable with that, then we're fine, because a corporation has other advantages. I mean, of course, A corporation may have the drawback of double taxation, but there are other advantages. For example, the ability to attract investors that really makes corporations pretty pleasant from an economic perspective. So those are elements you need to take into account. And the bottom line here is that so from an expansion perspective, a corporation is more appealing. Okay, you can raise money on public markets. You can file an IPO, something that will be a little complicated if you have an LLC. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about single member LLC payroll. Everything you need to know. So I just spoke to you about the two forms you need to have. So corporate taxation or sole proprietor designation. There is a quintessential criterion that you need to that really plays an important role in the equation here. That's employee salaries. So when we talk about single member LLC payroll, again, I've just established the fact that if you are a single member LLC, you can still have 1,000 or 1 million employees for that matter. Single member LLC just means that one person owns the LLC. So employee salaries may always be deducted no matter how you choose to be taxed. Salaries can only be given in exchange for services performed for the company. The salaries must be reasonable for the tasks performed and expertise required. Unfortunately, there are no hard and fast rules here about when a salary is reasonable. I mean, the IRS have actually issued a few sort of instructions, but nothing is pretty clear. Okay. Now, hours worked per year, amount of responsibility, and skill level required are a few good ways to evaluate a job's target salary. And the good thing is that there are certain websites such as Glassdoor, for instance, and or pay.com or salary.com that sort of give an indication as to what salary levels can be expected in certain jobs. So if you're out there, you're just wondering what salary you need to pay your employees, then you need to really do a little bit of research. And sometimes it might be a little better to even hire. If you have a lot of employees to hire for your single member LLC, it might be interesting to hire a recruiting firm to kind of help you out, because the recruiting firms have databases, they do research, they have benchmarks upon which they can base their decision. They can give you an idea. They can give you a ballpark when it comes to how much you can actually pay a prospective employee. So those are elements to really pay attention to. Now, one thing you need to also pay attention to here is that when we talk about employee salaries have to be depending upon geography, right? You do not pay someone the same salary in New York versus Delaware. You don't pay someone the same salary in California versus Vermont, right? So you have different geographies call for different salary amounts or salary expectations. Now let's talk about deduction. How to deduct here. When we talk about single member LLC payroll, obviously there is the element of deduction to pay attention to. So when you are the only member of an LLC, paying yourself is actually as simple as writing a check in the business name or making an electronic transfer of funds to your personal account. Remember, the money must come from your business account, the LLC account, to your personal account. Do not mix those two, okay? You really want to be sure about that. So you can deduct employee salaries as a sole proprietor by calculating the yearly total and reporting it in the expense area of your personal tax return. So this serves to reduce your taxable income. And so on Form 1120 for corporations, if you elect to be taxed as a corporation, you may enter the total amount for all salaries paid, including your own salary, on the salaries and wages line. There's a line called salaries and wages. Now, if you need help with your single member LLC payroll, you can actually let us know in the comment section below. And one of our team members will get back to you. We'll explain everything to you based on your geography and based on your company setup, because all situations are different. And it's always important to, if you can either ask us a question, or you can just reach out to an attorney in your area to sort of help you out. You can reach out to a tax attorney. You can reach out to a CPA, a certified public accountant. You can reach out to an enrolled agent to sort of help you out. So those three professional categories can really help you out. They can explain things to you and help you or figure out the best move based on your situation. And one thing I also need to say here is that when we talk about single member LLC payroll, sometimes it's just a lot better to outsource the whole thing to a third party. In other words, it's just better to have a payroll company handle your payroll on your behalf. That way you can just focus on drumming up revenue, right? Finding customers, providing services, providing goods and services, taking care of logistics, taking care of doing the front office, because payroll is basically a back office work. And I'm not saying it in a bad way here, but I'm just saying that there is you can actually spend your time better. So think about the outsourcing part of the process as well. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about single member LLC payroll. Let me give you a few pro tips here. If you choose to be a sole proprietorship, you don't have to do anything other than work for yourself, right? There are no fees or rules to become one, though there are requirements if you decide to hire employees. Because you and your business are treated as one and the same, the downside is the personal liability, as in your personal assets are at risk if your business runs into financial trouble. Alternatively, if you want some more protection, you might choose to form a single member LLC, which is an LLC with one owner. A multi-member LLC is another type of LLC that has more than one owner who are members of the LLC. So you get to have LLC in your business name, and as the name states, it protects your personal assets, your personal assets, and limits your liability against lawsuits and creditors. Of course, if courts have found that you're not you haven't exhibited gross negligence, and but those benefits come with the downside. LLCs have to pay to be registered with your state. They are subject to governing laws and may have to pay annual registration fees. So depending on your needs as an entrepreneur or independent contractor, you may want to seek legal advice and guidance from an accountant to determine which business entity is the best choice for you, right? So considerations including managing your business income, any distributions, and your business expenses, alongside evaluating reasonable compensation, whether you need guaranteed payments or not, what your tax rate is, and what your tax savings could be, as well as what type of business you engage in, with how much legal protection you require. So you have a lot of stuff that you have to think about in terms of, so when we talk about single member LLC payroll, the payroll part is part of a grain ensemble, right? The payroll part is part of a grander sort of ecosystem. So you have to think about not only payroll, but also think about taxation, think about legal protection. You have to think about insurance. You have to think about regulatory compliance, and so on and so forth. So the thing is that regardless of where your LLC operates from, there are ways to actually there are ways to pay yourself from your LLC. And as the owner of an LLC, you don't get paid a salary or wages, right? Instead, you pay yourself by taking money out of the LLC's profits as needed. As I said before, you can do electronic transfer, you can do regular checks, whatever it is. You can even do just a regular withdrawal. And that's called an owner's draw. You can simply write a check to yourself. Okay? Nothing complicated. Don't complicate things. Or you can transfer the money from your business profits from your LLC's business bank account to your personal bank account. That's it. Now, the thing that you need to remember in all cases is that the laws is on your side, but the law can also be against you if you do not document things. Documentation plays an important role, especially when it comes to taxation. Because God forbid, if you were to be audited by the IRS and they're asking you questions, they're telling you, or they're asking you a question, they want documentation, and you can't prove anything, then you are in trouble, big trouble, because if the IRS, God forbid, were to reclassify, for instance, your corporate status, or we were to reclassify your company's income or expenses, then you might have a big problem to really think about. Another thing I want to say also is that documentation plays an important role, because some stakeholders, including lenders, sometimes they want to see your financial statements. They might ask to see your actual financial statements or your projected financial statements. They might ask to see your balance sheet. They might ask to see your income statement. They might ask to see your statement of cash flows. They might ask to see your statement of owner's equity. If you do not document things, for instance, let's say you're paying yourself, right? And you have owner's draws, and you do not document those owner's draws, what happens here is that your capital account, which is actually your stockholders' equity account, will not be properly updated. Because normally, when you have a capital account, you need to actually deduct all the profit distributions, and you need to include all the profits made by the company. That's what we call the retained earnings. So it's important here to pay attention to documentation, paperwork. You need to actually keep track of everything. Before we close today's conversation and we talk about single member LLC payroll, it's important to really remember that you are taxed in a specific way as the owner of a single member LLC. The IRS, as I said before, treats all single member LLCs as sole proprietorships by default. That means what? It means for tax purposes, your LLC will be seen as a disregarded entity. So instead of the LLC paying income tax, the profits and losses of the LLC are passed on to you, the small business owner, making disregarded entities also pass-through entities. In other words, you may consider it a bookkeeping tax benefit that you don't need to file a separate tax return for the LLC as the sole proprietor, since you will report all of your LLC income on your individual tax return. Your state, however, may have tax filing requirements for LLCs, so make sure to check your state's rules. So when we talk about LLC payroll, like single member LLC payroll, you have tax implications at both the federal level and also at the state level. In some cases, you might have tax implications at the city or county level. So check everything, okay? If you prefer, you can choose also for your LLC to be taxed as a corporation, either an S corporation, S corp, or a C corporation, C corp. If you do that, you will be considered an employee, not an LLC owner, and you may be required to pay yourself a reasonable salary with payroll taxes taken out. Taking that route can reduce your self-employment taxes, that is Medicare and Social Security taxes, but it can also result in more paperwork at tax time and may require other tax payments. So it's one of those things, like I said, every situation is different, every state is different, every company, every LLC is different. Every payment arrangement, every compensation arrangement is different. So it's one of those things where it's better to talk through the pros and cons with your CPA or tax professionals, your tax professional first. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I was just talking to you about single member LLC payroll, the whole process. So we talked about deducting a salary for a single owner LLC. We talked about electing corporate tax, having sole proprietor designation. Talked about employee salaries, how to deduct things. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.